So, um, let's start off. Before I do this, I wanted to revisit what do we remember about Akbar's um, intellectual oppression? What did Akbar say about intellectual oppression? I want to use that concept as one potential way to frame this conversation. What do we remember about Akbar's intellectual oppression? Anybody remember that from last week? Okay, so Akbar's intellectual oppression involves the abuse of ideas, labels, and concepts geared toward the mental degradation of a people or a person. There is no area in which mental or intellectual oppression is more clearly illustrated than in the area of mental health judgments. Okay. Everybody, we remember talking about that last week? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
sorry, I
okay,
was
okay.
cooking.
Okay, no,
Go
you're
ahead.
good, you're good. All right, yeah. So everybody, so we remember that definition that Akbar put on the table?
Yes. I think
Okay,
everybody's probably going to their notes or whatever.
gotcha. Okay, cool. So let's keep that in mind as we go through this. Now, Dennis, he drew some connections. Whether we agree or not, we're gonna get into that. What's one of the key things that we remember that we could pull up that he talked about like how do you look at his social Darwinism as a definition? Like what did he kind of establish? What did Dennis establish as the definition of social Darwinism? Let's kind of establish that here. What did he establish as the social definition of social Darwinism?
To be democratic sanity,
Say it again.
democratic sanity.
Are you connecting that to Akbar's piece?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
you said the
Yeah,
new one.
the new
That is
article.
oh, okay.
Mhm.
Let's go to the new notes.
What did he establish with social Darwinism?
The only thing I got, as far as what he established was, I'm trying to like not talk because I'm running the YouTube too. But from what I got was, it was kind of a social theory that justified racism,
Hmm.
and that it was kind of like uh, a way to say, like, they're inferior, so yes, they could be slaves, and it was like a support to imperialism.
Hmm.
That's what I got. I don't know if that's
Absolutely.
the physical definition, but I pull it
The
up. I just pulled it
science.
from my computer.
Yeah. They uses science to do it, to enact racist policies.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so it
Hmm.
validated all the existing stuff, all the
Absolutely.
existing institutions that we had.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm going to make sure we start from there so we have a clear, established definition of what the article is trying to say with social Darwinism. Now, he goes into Herbert Spencer. Herbert Spencer is the first person to coin the survival of the fittest. So, based on what he discussed, Darwin focused primarily on the biological evolution of animal species and almost never addressed the cultural or social consequences
Hmm.
of his evolution for humans. Spencer was the first to coin the term survival of the fittest and reasoned that Darwinistic principles were intended to buttress the case that biological evolution could be equally applicable to human societies. So Spencer said we can go beyond the biological and apply these Darwinistic principles to determining people's positions in society. We can absorb social constructions of people and who they are in the evolutionary scales based on these Darwinistic principles. Um, I want y'all to wrestle with this one, because I this is one question I wanted to throw on the table and wrestle with. What does he mean by this? Okay. Spencer reasoned further that human societies, like biological species, operate according to the principles of natural selection, are governed by competition and fitness, and evolve from an undifferentiated, homogeneous, and primitive state to one differential, heterogeneity, and progress. Okay, I'm gonna read that one more time. Spencer reasoned further that human societies, like biological species, operate according to principles of natural selection, are governed by competition and fitness, and evolve from an undifferentiated, homogeneous, and primitive state to one of differentiation, heterogeneity, and progress. What does he mean by that? What is Spencer arguing or trying to establish with that?
I'm not so clear about the last part of what he's saying, but he's trying to acknowledge that even in nature there's a such thing as social hierarchies. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, the way the last part of it is worded, I kind of, even though I heard you say it two times, it didn't just like register immediately, but to the beginning of it, that's what he's immediately trying to establish, that even in
Mm-hmm.
nature there's that even nature decides or determines some sort of a social hierarchy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody want to add to that?
He's also saying how like I guess he's kind of against the idea of artificial intervention, and how like a lot of people may say that those philosophies is like the starting point of what spearheaded
Eugenics.
yeah, eugenics, or like a lot just a individual meritocratic competition, that type of thing, to where there, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of ways you can go with it, because like you said in the article, it ties a lot of.
May I comment? Because what he's talking about is
Hold on, bro,
scientifically, he's
bro.
coming from the
Anathema,
Homo sapien.
anathema. Hold on, bro. But when so one thing I didn't go over the rules. When one we always gonna practice a one mic rule. So
Oh,
when someone is talking, yeah, give them an opportunity to land, so that way we can kind of absorb and receive what they're saying. So my brother Fetty was still unpacking his ideas around it. So we'll come to you right after that. Go ahead, brother Fetty.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's all I was saying regarding like Spencer. He was just tying it to, I guess, intervention. It's like an example of like hunter gatherers that probably at a lower population rate, and they're saying that nature is gonna play itself out, meaning the survival of the fittest, meaning if you don't have these certain advantageous things, then you're gonna be wiped out. And I guess people can use that politically later on to say how that is, already promoting, a form of superiority by establishing
Mm,
and identifying
mm.
groups who may fall under that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. Okay, go ahead, brother Anathema.
yeah, I think the statement is more simplistic than that. And people are kind of reading into the statement what's going to come later. But in that statement, it just meant you went from being one type of Homo sapien, or one type of species of the Homo, and being differentiation over time. And you can do that with any animal kingdom. You get
Mm-hmm.
one thing that groups them all, but then as time progresses, you get differentiation. But differentiation doesn't automatically mean hierarchy. He comes later to
Mm,
argue for that. He
mm.
comes later to argue. Differentiation just means that. It's just differentiation.
Okay. 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 Excellent piece. Good observation. So how does Spencer make the argument for individualism? So his interpretation of Darwinist principles and how it applies into human societies end up creating a strong belief and foundation for his liaison fair government and individualism, which America holds true as a core
All right,
tenet.
Randy.
Let's go ahead. Go ahead. How does Spencer ground himself in individualism? I don't know if
Sorry,
not.
I thought I was on mute. If I'm not,
Go
go ahead.
ahead. Go on mute.
Oh, I think
He
that's the
make
part
the
that I got.
argument for liaison fair government or individualism. How does it ground him in the principles of individualism?
Hmm. All right, yeah, okay.
Well,
So
he wanted he was anti-intervention.
Anybody have any
Um,
thoughts?
Right, right.
can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think. Oh, can you hear us?
Yeah,
Spencer set the foundation
He
for
can't. He can't hear
individualism.
us. He can't hear
I
us.
don't. I don't think Brother Mujasi can hear everybody.
If
For some
somebody
reason.
messaged him, Jossie, I don't think he can hear us.
Mujasi, can you hear Brass and them?
no, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna come back to that one because this is
Oh,
critically
this is
important.
hilarious. Can somebody call him?
Must be I'll be talking. So one of the things that I've established and interpreted from Spencer's work is that the concept of individualism is banked on this principle of the hierarchical the development, homogenous move uh, to nature decides who will be the fittest, who will be the strongest. How society can produce this hierarchy or this culture of elitism. And through the justification of that principles of what you supposedly are born with and genetically have and how you navigate society, you can his idea was that governments and societal structures can support individual through policy and law support individual principles of pursuing themselves in competition and intergroups scaling. And so my ideas around how Spencer kind of laid the foundation theoretically to liaison fair government and individualism is banked on him trying to draw the metaphor of Darwinistic principles of people who have the skill sets and tools to survive should survive. And they have the right, so-called the human right to be able to do so.
Can I come in? Am I allowed to come in? Hello?
Yeah, but he can't hear us, so he's probably gonna go out and come back. And he didn't go over all the rules. Another rule is the 3 B's, or what was it, 5 B's? Be brief, brother. Be brief. So we got to limit our um response time so we can give more people a chance to speak.
Oh,
So give him a chance to come back in.
trying to
Hold on,
be.
because he didn't hear anything. But go ahead.
No, all I was going to talk about is he was framing the laissez-faire to say the government shouldn't assist people, that the government should be relaxed, almost like republicanism concepts, but even more deeper, libertine, laissez-faire, no intervention, no welfare, no supporting, just pure capitalism and pure you survive on what you need for survive on.
Okay, give me 1
Mujasi,
second.
can you hear us?
Mujasi, can you
Yeah,
hear us
I
now?
can hear you. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay,
My
yeah.
brother Anathema, I apologize, bro. Something happened with the audio to where I couldn't hear y'all talking. So I
No,
know
it's
you
cool.
was cooking.
I hope I
Yeah.
wasn't interrupting or
Um,
violating.
No,
yeah.
you wasn't at all. This is what we're supposed to do. I'm having some audio pieces. Here's what I'm gonna do. I have to jump on my phone because I was trying to share my screen on the iPad and I think that may have disrupted the audio. So let
Okay,
me chime out and jump back in on my phone. All right.
okay. Yeah, I pulled him into the other room. He could hear us fine in the other room. So him sharing the screen was fucking with his audio.
No, because you see it right here in this paragraph where he says,
Huh?
indeed, his great fear was that governments would intervene to keep the less powerful afloat with artificial devices such as social welfare policies, thereby upsetting nature's natural selection policy. So what he's saying is that the government shouldn't be giving you EBT. You shouldn't have none of that. That it should be fittest of the fittest, all the way around. That's why they want laissez-faire. And he was using laissez-faire to say that would be, and it's funny because of the pun of the fear. It doesn't mean the same fear but you get what I'm saying? It's
Yeah, we
Yeah,
fear.
got.
yeah.
Yeah. When you understand
Analysis.
rhetorically what he's doing. So he's using that laissez-faire concept of government to say like, yeah, they're all people, if you put them in a laissez-faire situation, that it would boil down to survival of the fittest anyway. You wouldn't have
Mm,
social safety net.
Yeah,
Mm.
the other piece I liked was he was also saying that if he didn't do it, that's the I heard the other part I immediately screamed welfare, so I got that. That was easy. But the other part that tripped me out was when he said, "Now here's the thing: if you do help these people, though, what's going to happen is gonna they're gonna hold back, and that's what you don't want to happen. You don't want to help them thinking, what's the part? Say, you don't really want to help them because if you help them, then part
You're
wasn't
upsetting
they won't
nature's
just
natural
right,
selection
right.
process. Yep.
They won't just drop off. Like they'll
Yeah, you're gonna
always
upset them.
they'll hold back the basically hold back the pack's progress. So if you look at us as like a pack, that if we help
Yeah,
them, then the whole group can't get to where we need to be in order to be a successful group. It'll be like almost like an anvil. Like you always drop an anvil. We'll never know what we could be if we're helping the weakest. Just let the weakest drop off and let the weakest
yeah, Brad. I'm not trying to cut you, but I think you need to explore your pack metaphor better and source that thought, not source the thought, but work the thought, parse the thought. Because I get what you mean by that, but I don't think everybody got what you mean.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Yeah, we understood. I understood that.
Oh, okay, all right. 'Cause I think it was a good metaphor when he said the pack mentality, where the weakest of the weak got to get ate up by the lion then, or the
Mm.
hyena,
Yeah,
or the leopard.
to make the pack faster.
Yeah, that happened at all. And then the sometimes it's like we talk about somebody, and like people like this, they sit there and reason like, well, y'all complaining about society, but we don't even know what the great grand society is because we spending so much time helping such and such. It's interesting when you look at it as like animals versus the humans per se. But I like it. I like this particular paper. I liked a lot.
So now let's look at the
You ever
so-called
copy it, you're
father.
not gonna like it.
So let's look at Sumner. Okay, because I want to move through some of these theories real quickly, and then I want to go deeper and having some analytical conversations about this stuff. Sumner, the father of sociology,
Mhm.
he continued to push liaison-fair government ideas from social Darwinistic perspectives, natural selection, and survival of the fittest. How did he how did he frame slavery in this social Darwinistic perspective? How did he cast slavery in this theory?
He said that he said slavery it's ignorant, I don't mean to laugh. But he said that slavery permitted superior groups the leisure to construct and develop more refined cultures. And that
Mm,
slavery actually advanced the cause of humanity. So what I
mm,
got from it is that the business class is technically the natural order of things. Like whatever the business class is thinking, whatever it is that they're doing, they're the fitness, I guess. They're the fitness in it, and that is that we need that they needed to have slaves so that they can have the time to actually lead the pack. Well, I'm gonna just keep using the pack so y'all because since you understand that, but just to lead the pack forward, you need slaves to actually do the manual labor. This is some interesting stuff.
Can I?
This is interesting stuff to me.
Yeah, I gotta comment on this because you know the original meaning of a scholar was leisure, right?
Nah, I ain't know that.
I know that. Yeah.
To go study, you had to be at leisure.
Mm,
You had to,
interesting.
yeah. You didn't go to like when you went to school or apprenticeship, you were going to go work and do something. But if you wanted to just like explore the universe or just do complex mathematics, you better have come from money at them time there and had time, leisure time, just to do that. And that's the
Yeah,
context in which he's talking.
Mm,
yeah, they're
It
very.
was what Einstein said. Albert Einstein said he not smarter than the average person. It's just that he got more time and means than the average person.
Mhm.
I think that's all the same thing.
I love it.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily business class. It's the people that benefited off the business class, because those people is not going to work.
Mhm.
They have people that's managing the account, managing the plantation, managing the product distribution, all of that. They just sitting back collecting an interest and a dividend, and it's going to college or financing this young person to study these things to become whatever the fuck y'all gonna become.
Yeah. I
And
think
that's the context of what she's talking about. And I'm not necessarily defending it. I just know the context because of my literature training. We read a lot about that shit.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we follow the early theoretical establishment. Now, all of these scholars was like mid 19th century. Okay, so y'all already know what was going on in the mid 19th century. Europe was trying to move
Slavery.
to slavery was going on in the fall of slavery. Had some competitions and contentions within America. Slavery was still across the Atlantic in various different European colonistic spaces. Uh, Britain was trying to depart and create a different economic system as America was trying to unfold itself. There was still some intercontinental wars and conflicts happening between. So we know a little bit about the 19th century and where Charles Darwin and Spencer and Sumner is galvanizing, their rationalization to their theory, right? Now, let's fast forward. Now we introduce Carl Pearson and Benjamin Kidd. Jeff, I want you to kind of lean in on this one a little bit because this is what I mentioned to you yesterday. If Spencer and Sumner would have been what, according to the article, gentle races, these English theorists, social Darwinists, Carl Pearson and Benjamin Kidd, would have been the radical fanatics. They would have been, according to intelligentsia, the fanatical right. Kidd's and Pearson's ideas was responses to the rush on the part of the European nation and the United States to establish colonies during the last decade of the 19th century. Both were territorial expansionists who viewed European, especially English, colonialism and imperialism and other efforts to control the natural resources and people of distant continent as natural components of the Darwinistic principles. And so Pearson and Kidd, now, these society theorists, is finding justification for what Britain is doing in various different spaces and colonized spaces across their empire. How would their social Darwinistic principles inform or even establish political? And this may be a little bit further along the conversation, but how does Pearson and Kidd and their social Darwinistic principles inform the British Parliament and its rule of their time? How do you think their social Darwinistic will shape the politics of the British Empire?
Well, it would be more of like Calvinistic in nature, right?
You said Calvinistic?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It would be more Calvinistic in nature from Kidd and Pearson's, perspective, not directly divine. You dig what I'm saying? That they had the right to rule because of divine mandate, but naturally, right? That type of hierarchy would develop naturally because they were superior. You dig what I'm saying? And they had the right, to almost rule. It was almost natural for them to rule over less endowed humanity. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can see it. I can see that.
Do you? So now this is not for Chef. This is for everybody. With our conversations that we've been having over the last few days, do, do
yeah.
you think Pearson and Kidd will be advancing the human rights with their social Darwinistic principles? Or do you think there will be some confliction to the idea of the Declaration of Human Rights, given that they coming from this imperialistic superiority theory of the English? How would those
All
exist?
four of them would disagree with it. All four people that we read would disagree with it. You dig what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So far, yeah, all four of them would have how you said issues with it.
So you think they would be kind of anti-human right?
All four of them, yeah, all four of them, according to how we view it nowadays, they would be kind of set against it. Well, they would have arguments set against it. They would have issues with it.
Jesse, can you share
they're
your screen?
interested.
Or no?
They're
I apologize, sis. I'm just trying to see if you can share your
no,
screen.
no, you're good.
Can anybody share their screen so we can get the literature?
Yeah, I could try one more time. If
Can
my
somebody
audio,
else? No, not you.
Mhm.
Can somebody else share the file that's in the voice? What's the name? And we can share their screen.
I'll do it. Give me a second.
It's helpful.
Okay.
I,
Appreciate it.
I, I
Yeah.
would think that they're interested in their human rights, and they prioritize their human rights, and it's still all using this circular reasoning from people who came before them, and it's also based on the misuse of the people who came. Like,
It's you still talking?
It's you talking. You went out. But while he's out, it wouldn't really. It would be whatever rights they deemed correct. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be necessarily the person's rights. It wouldn't be necessarily what they believed. It was kind of like the the higher races have a duty to guide the lower races. And what it seemed to me was what I got from it is that they was given a moral. They were given like a moral cover for the bull that they was doing. You know what I mean? Because it was like they looked at everybody else as unenlightened. So when you look at everybody else, when you go into and you think everybody else is unenlightened, then you think whatever is the light. So you
Hey, Brass.
Brass, I think you're going in and out
Yeah,
too.
you started fading out also. I was going to try to add a little piece to it also.
Yes, sir.
It's crazy that you said the bull that they use, because in actuality, I connected back to the papal bulls. If you understand the papal bulls, and they say that if you don't have a Christian monarch, you're allowed to indoctrinate whoever you run into. That shows that they're using. It's like a double-edged sword with morale and religion to try to prove that they are like you say, more civilized. So they do feel like I have the right to do this, and I'm helping when I am doing this. In return, it may be vice versa for the people who's getting oppressed on with the new ideology. But yeah, that's not take to
it. Let me add something as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Welcome back, Hits. Go ahead, finish your statement.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say too, and if you have a few people saying that and spreading inferiority across the masses, you're going to lose on the moral side, because everybody's not going to conduct themselves if feel people are inferior in a moral manner. People are going to take advantage of people, exploit, and that's what happened. And a lot of this stuff comes on. It's after the fact. It's a justification using data the wrong way, information the wrong way, twisting information that works for the subjugation of people and exploitation of people. So you don't get that across the board. You get that as when someone turns around to look and go, "Hey, is this okay?" You're going to get the thumbs up, either from a productive standpoint, a resource standpoint. Yeah, you're providing resources. We're taking it. We need them resources. They're inferior. It's a moral thing to do. So it's like a thumbs up to the masses. That's how I look at it. Like, a lot of these things are just pats on the back or just simple justifications what average people are doing.
May I comment when Hicks is done?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Anathema.
Right.
I heard. Hold on. I heard brother Anathema, and then I heard my sister. So I'm gonna go to Anathema, then I'm gonna come to you, my sis. And then logic. Okay, gotcha.
So Anathema, I'm next.
Yes, go ahead.
Anathema, man, not anathema, man.
Anathema. Thank you for that. Thank you.
All right. No. Cloud, how may I go phrase this? All right. When you have the Christian perspective, right? And I'm just gonna simplify it. They really believe that the devil had the world for 6,000 years. They really believe that there was something called Christendom. That's the narrative they operated under. So when they went around the world and they met these people that they didn't know nothing about or they encountered, they considered them as people under the dominion of the devil. And their gods were in league with the devil, dominions of the devil type thing. This is how they believe. Now, when science got rid of religion, science had to come up with a theory to replace that. Yeah, that's what they did. And so now they went, like you said, they went back and they're saying, well, Darwinism gave us this biological concept. We can apply these to modern social theories to justify our position in society, because we can't say as scientists it's because we were supporting Christendom and bringing Christendom to people. You understand? So now
Right, that's right.
it has to be a new narrative within the world of science, because science is what's used to supplant the Christian
Excellent.
narrative.
Excellent. Yep. Excellent. Good analysis. Good analysis. Thank you, my brother. Anathema. I got that. Anathema. Go ahead, my sister, and then I'm gonna come to you, Logic.
I just had a question that maybe we could think about. If you could transport the three of these guys, Spencer, Kid, and the other one here to our current times, which one do you think would be most problematic?
Mm, I like that question. My
That's a
sister
great
said if we
question.
can transport Herbert Spencer, William Sumner, Carl Pearson, and Benjamin Kidd to today's time, which ones would be problematic to not only Black folks, but the whole society?
Yeah, and the most problematic, which one would be worse?
The one that suggested eugenics, that the European elites should breed with European elites, and the poor people we should discourage them from breeding together. I would say he's the worst.
That's Francis Galton. We haven't gotten to him yet. We'll come back to that.
But I think a lot of their work is relevant now too. Not relevant in a good manner, but a lot of their work was used just how they used the works prior to themselves. To
Absolutely.
justify certain things. Like Darwin was not about social, like Anathema said. It was more biological, it wasn't social, and racial. So the results of their work are prevalent now, when you can base people on race and tests and metrics that you set up. So I think their work is still around now for the results of it.
Question,
I think Kid would be worse.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think Kid is because Kid was global. So I think his ideas pushed out over, how can I put it? Because he was kind of like hiding the exploiting, but he was giving it, and it's funny, we've been saying this word so much the past few days. Now I don't even like the word, but it was giving it like a moral cover. So it was making their exploitation kind of seem like, this is the moral thing to do. But what I don't like about Kid is it seemed like his was more for like global expansion, not just domestic. I think the other two domestically, as far as welfare and our government, would matter. But because Kid that's the British Empire he was talking about. So now you're talking about a situation where you'll have people like, how can I put it? I'm gonna dominate you racially, but morally it's the right thing, and you had a whole world believing this. So there'll be really nobody to fight back. It would be the majority of the world would feel that way. I'm gonna land my plane real quick. Like when George Floyd got killed on camera, the world spoke out. It wasn't just us. We saw what we were doing in Minnesota, but they were doing that all over the globe. But if there was like a moral guise for this, the world would just look past, what's going on here. It's an opinion piece. It's not.
And I want to see it as an educator, right?
Hold on, brother Anathema. I want to.
Ideas would be valuable.
I know we got to go. Logic is
Logic. Hold on, brother Anathema. Hold on. Just 1 sec. We got to go to Logic.
Oh, I was responding to her question. I wasn't interrupting
Oh,
logic.
okay, go ahead,
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah.
I was responding to a question, and I was saying that they wouldn't be relevant because we deal with learning modalities to address different styles of learning. Because
Mm,
certain people were taught ways in which they couldn't acquire the information because of their learning modality. So
yeah.
we understand differentiation in learning when we approach IQ and intelligence. So how are some these ideas going to be relevant nowadays when we have all type of mitigating factors that are not necessarily from the state? They're from people in the profession, the pedagogues, that recognize and find ways to compensate and address this differentiation by understanding that there's different modes of intelligence and different modes of learning.
So you think they wouldn't be relevant today, that they would be dismissed?
No, man. I think no. I think they would be outdated. They would be on the
Absolutely.
sideline.
Absolutely.
They
Okay.
could be like
Thank you.
Charlie Kirk maybe and do propaganda,
Yeah.
but in terms of being relevant scientifically, no, man. No
They'll
way.
get dismissed. Yeah. Okay. Excellent point. Excellent point. Brother Logic, I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, my question was maybe going back just a little bit on that phrase that we read about the business class sort of like leading the way as far like he basically determined that the business class was like the epitome, right? Like
Hmm.
that was kind of like the highest hierarchy that he kind of talked about, right? So even when you're saying that, to me, and maybe I'm looking into it too deep because I know the article is about scientific racism, but in that statement, isn't he kind of acknowledging that there's a bit of division even amongst again amongst his ethnic group because he's making an argument about not
Come on.
necessarily classism, but he's kind of talking about the business class leading the way, and if
Come
and
on,
if the
brother
business
Logic.
class
Yep.
if the business class is leading the way, that could obviously that doesn't benefit everybody within that ethnic group. You know what I'm saying?
Come on.
Is
Come
is
on.
that is
That's
that a little
good.
bit in there too?
No, that's in there. Let's unpack that because right here under Pearson and Kidd, he said Pearson raises an issue that is seldom verbalized but often a hidden force in racist thought. Colon. The message conveyed to members of the disposed amongst the dominant group that they will be the political and economic beneficiaries of racial discrimination and racial exclusion due to their nation's imperialistic policies. Let me lean in
I
a
did
little
not
bit.
even catch that. I did not even
Yeah,
catch that when I read.
Boy, Logic,
yeah.
you
Logic,
was
he was on it. Logic is logicking right now. Logic is logicking right now. He was already on it. So Pearson goes on to Dennis Routledge goes on to say that thus he surmised that the poor and lower class whites to become partners in the imperialist venture,
Right, I
maintaining that
remember that.
the
Okay.
very survival of Western civilization depended on such a partnership. What was dope about when I read that, I'm like, yo, Corey just said that yesterday. Brother Corey just talked about that yesterday. What does it mean? My question for now, what Pearson is trying to put on the table, what does it mean for white solidarity in what Pearson is what is he trying to say about white solidarity?
This
Logic
is
was going with
deep.
this. What is he
This
trying
is
to,
deep.
what does white solidarity mean in imperialistic goals according to the theory of social Darwinism?
I would just say one word. It's an illusion. Well, how would
Mm.
somebody else describe it?
Can y'all hear me?
No,
Yep.
we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Oh, did y'all miss my screen sharing?
No, your screen is still sharing right now.
Okay. Um, so yeah, man, like that's that's deep, like how it talks about how America would use its social Darwinistic ideas internally on, minority groups, i.e., African Americans, and how the British would use it externally on the different colonies of people that it, had under its dominion, but both kind of work the same in their rationale. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? You know what I mean? Like it was a belief mechanism that nature had fitted them to be superior. So it was a justification for however they or where black people was um situated at on the social strata, economically, educationally. They felt as though that was basically fitting for their evolution. Like we're superior, like we're gonna be, over top of you, and we have the right to be over top of you. So it was a justification.
It was a justification. It was a
Mm.
And
justification.
validation and validation. That's another important
Yeah,
word.
validate.
Justify something is one way. Validation is another. That's that thumbs up you get. You know, even for
Mm.
like Logic and you guys were talking about the lower class whites that somehow they would benefit if they just go along, get along with the system,
Mm-hmm.
even though
Mm-hmm.
they may,
Mm-hmm.
obviously they wouldn't be seen as lower class if they were equal, but you're lower than the elites, but higher than Africans, Asians, Black Americans, etc.
That's right.
Mm.
You gotta remember the context of it was a war against odd. You
The
gotta
war
know that
against who?
in view of if you read the section, it's set up in our topic sentence introductory, it says the war against odd. So what he means is now that this is allowing you to actually position yourself from top to bottom as a group, separate and distinct from other groups. And now you're part of the dominant group, even though you may be at the lower bottom end of the dominant group, you're still in the dominant group. And that
Mm.
was what is being expressed in that paragraph. And
Mm-hmm.
that's it. So
Mm-hmm.
now I have a racial superiority over you, whether I'm smarter than you or not. I'm still part of this dominant group because of this Hobsonian theory about the war against odd. If you go back and you look
So
on it, what does it say? It says in the battle for the control over Africa, Asia, and South America. So that's everything non-European, non-white, right? And kids in Pearson's view as a battle in the Hobbesian sense of a war against all amongst contending European and American governments, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then it was Pearson who raised the issue,
Appreciate you,
which
man.
verbalized, right? And often hidden force in racist thought. The message conveyed to members of the dispossessed amongst the dominant group that they will be
Yes, I do.
beneficiaries of this racial discrimination. That's literally what he says.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're part of this group separation. And now even though you may be struggling in the survival of the fittest in your group, you're winning in the survival of the fittest versus other groups.
So do you mean like even like a quote unquote white trash would be more valuable than the average black person or a black person of some substance or means?
Exceptional black person.
No,
Right.
Yes.
you gotta listen. That's not
Yes.
me. I him saying that, but he's saying it only by membership in the group because
Mm-hmm.
the
Yes.
group
Okay.
is out competing other groups in the
That's
survival of
right.
the fittest.
Come
It's
on.
like the
Come
Great
on.
Compromise. It's just like the Great Compromise.
Wow.
Okay.
And
Maybe I
that's
should put
what
it up.
was profound about this piece, because what and thank you, Anathema, and thank you for the question, my sis. He's expressing and expounding on that. If you was to put W.E.B. Du Bois in 1915 on a trolley next to a poor working class or
Hmm?
even broke illiterate white farmer from Alabama, society, according to Pearson's structure, will still value the whiteness of that broke trailer trash compared to W.E.B. Du Bois' only cultural but intellectual prowess and genius, because of the racial stratification that Pearson is putting forth in this type of model of social Darwinism. That white trash will still have this solidarity with and express and experience the benefits politically and economically of that racial categorization of his superiority because he belongs, according to this theory, in the class of that whiteness, even though he's at the bottom of the scale.
What he's advocating is group versus group now. He's not saying it's going to be individualistic. Now we're going to divide this between groups of people. So even within our group, we have stratification, as the brethren said, but that's our group, and our group is out competing every group. So if you take this poor white person and you put him up against, like he said, a W.E. Du Bois, he still has more potentiality. He's still going to reap more benefits than a W.E. Du Bois. In his theory, we're not saying actuality. Remember, we're not saying that.
Yeah, but too, I think more common words is easier. You're still superior. I don't think everybody got a scientific, explanation for the masses. It was you are better, and you start with that. I think that was good enough for a lot of people to run with. You are superior, regardless. And maybe second and third, you can benefit from that. But again, if it doesn't take anybody long to know if I'm eating chop, bullshit, and you're eating steak, and no matter what class you're in. So, these things have to be maintained. And I think it's easier to maintain it through the masses, through simple, ideology. They're inferior, you're superior. We validate and prove what we're doing is right by all of these measures that are beforehand, natural, using Darwin's theory, which using it again improperly, and just this circular reasoning again. So I think it's a lot simpler when it's spread out amongst the people. Just giving people the thought that they're superior and others are inferior.
That's right. So now let's move forward a little bit. Enters Francis Galton, father of eugenics movement, but Francis Galton leads this era with designing tests, various different tests, primarily the IQ test to test intelligence. And Anathema was starting to open up this a little bit earlier. And so Galton now says that he doubles down on the hereditarian ethos, that the society must dispense with the erroneous idea that natural equality amongst human beings exists. He says it doesn't exist. And nature, because of hereditarian principles, determines that. But he goes further with saying, I'm developing some hardcore testing to be able to prove scientifically that hereditary factors were paramount to the intellectual endowment of Europeans. Why? What implications does this have on racism at that time? Would they need to go into determining IQ testing and these testing through scientific methods? What creates the significance around it? Why come up with some so-called concrete evidence around IQ testing to prove the superiority of the Anglo-Saxon?
I think in my opinion, I think.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Elijah.
Yeah, I'm just going to say to further drive the point home, right? The only thing I can think of. What were you about to say?
No, it's just, to me, they're using the empire as natural selection. So you're looking for scientific reasons to justify any and everything. And I guess in our time it would be segregation. It would be any kind of thing that you're trying to use science to basically back all of this bull once again, to make it acceptable. So then now you add on this other piece, the IQ, this, that, and the other. What it'll do is now it's like, well, okay, well, you might disagree, this, that, and the other, whatever, but now look at this. And this is another reason why such and such, why it's that. That's what I got from it. I'm learning a lot from this is outside of my purview, but it's very interesting to get into the mind of the things that led to scientific racism, social dark. It's the things that this unfit part is just
Mhm.
it's bothering me just a taste. So I'm worried. You know, it's
No,
just
that's a
looking
work it
through
out,
because
brother.
because
It
This is
says
part of the
see,
article.
I'm still looking for the freedom sprinkles. Right. So I'm not seeing the freedom sprinkles in these conversations. I'm starting to see now political policies that go on today where I know that there are people today that still read and believe and want to practice and apply um, these things to justify the policies and things they're doing today in government.
Is this the
Absolutely.
part of the article where it basically says that he neglected to realize that people don't have an equal starting point? Is this the person that they were talking about? And that
May
He
I comment?
neglected to.
the names kind of
No,
run together a little bit.
This is the part of
yeah,
the
no,
article where he justifies
Hold on, what?
his measurement to justify eugenics.
right.
This was to justify the concept of eugenics, not only for people of color, but to differentiate amongst white people. And this is
Mm,
when they use the IQ test to create concepts of morons and all of these labels that they gave to people on these tests. And based on that, they figured they was weeding out the population.
Mhm.
And so the whole principle of the IQ test was to have a scientific basis for the concept of eugenics.
Good.
yeah,
And it
he's
wasn't only
using
eugenics,
again. They're
but
trying to
yes.
use they're trying
Mhm.
to use hard sciences for social science. That's a validation of that. They're trying to do that,
mm,
and
There
it
it
Yeah.
says
goes.
yeah, and it said again, it's an idea which validates or seeks to validate under social Darwin under social Darwinism was mainly an after the fact assertion that it is. Again, one of them things you do after you've already established something to try to go back and prove it, and then using hard science to try to prove social science just to verify. So again, they're
Yes.
just stacking these chips on top of each other to, to to
yeah,
That's right.
validate and
yeah,
look, this is the results. Like we were
yeah.
right, and this
Eugenics,
Right.
justifies.
Because a
let me
lot
ask
of
Right.
you
times in these
something. So,
conversations, the soft sciences, me and I forgot, I think me and Haskell was into this conversation about the difference between soft science and hard science. And you could still, being in political science, they there is a difference, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the data that you get is not as fallible as like a chemistry or a biology. You know what I mean? It's
Biology.
more
Mm-hmm.
fallible because you're doing surveys, you're doing group data, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
asking questions, and it's not as reliable, but you still can come to somewhat of the same thing. But in the soft science, you got to account for starting points. You got to account for all the mitigating factors around it, the data that you take in, right?
That's right.
So when you try to make soft science completely like hard science, then now you're gonna run into a problem because whoever you're doing this on, if you assuming that everything is equal and then you look at the data, it's not gonna be it's gonna be fallible, very fallible
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion.
Absolutely.
what I wanted to add was that what's crazy about this is when we think of eugenics, right? Based on the context of this article, right? You got to remember there's another side of eugenics. Eugenics is not just also labeling and discrediting the lower end of the perspective. It's also reproducing at the top
Mm-hmm.
end of the perspective. And they created and fucked up their bloodlines doing that. Just
Mm-hmm.
reproducing with each other and creating diseases and all type of things to where they realize like genetically you can't do that. Like you can't consistently marry your eighth cousin and you don't have no new genetics coming in out your gene pool. You're going to develop and proliferate gene traits that into your detriment. So the whole concept of eugenics just in real science doesn't work. Like in context in what Brass is saying. So like to read these things, because remember, like what we read now, he proposed in 1892. This is influencing other people and their arguments that are later adopted. Remember, into the scientific realm that don't end up working out. So both perspectives, both sides of eugenic is a failed ideology.
Okay.
And so, man, excellent point. And so we know that eugenics, and not only the eugenics, but the testing around eugenics, even that was pushed by Alfred Binet and Theophile Simon, the Binet-Simon scale, became kind of like the central template to be able to try to determine who's superior within a society. And this is both England, parts of Europe, and America, primarily grounded in America. And it also was enacted to do another thing. Now, one other thing was specifically around being able to stamp and solidify the inferiority disposition of Black psychology,
Mm-hmm.
Black mental health, Black reality. And the implications of that will be what? Because we know that if I can now rationale and use quote unquote hard science through testing to show that Black people are an inferior group by hereditary genetics and is part of their natural disposition of who they are, what does that mean in terms of policy, politics, and social construction? What does that mean? What can I do then at that point to the
What
Black
it means,
population politically?
what it means
Anything
is
you want.
if you can determine that this is in their genes and there's nothing technically that you can do, then you don't have to consider them socially. You don't have to have any compensation. You don't have to have any compassion or to even try to level the playing field per se. Any changing of their lives or anything trying to fix, it would be pointless. What it would be best to do is to dominate them, make sure they understand that they're dominating, let them just work or whatever. And then the ones that drop off are the ones that drop off, and then we'll just work with the new class. If you can just say we can't do anything, then there's no impetus for welfare or anything like that. There's nothing. There's no
Mm,
need to help them because they can't be helped. It's in their genes. The next one is born is the same as the other one and the other one. And they'll never be better than us, no matter how this
mm,
plays out, no matter how they talk, no matter how they look. Even if you get one that sounds, that's how they talk about us in the one. Even if you get one that sounds like a thing of three, genetically underneath, like you said, W.E.B. Du Bois sitting next to poor white person. That poor white person is still 15, 20 points higher in IQ than
guys,
W.E.B. Du
I
Bois,
think
no
you went
matter what.
out audio wise. You went out.
Go ahead. I'm done. I was done.
Said
No,
the test
Yeah,
results
hopefully when Brad's come back,
justified
he can finish
racial.
his point. And so, because he was
Mujasi, you
cooking.
can't hear us again.
Now, this brings us forward to the
No,
1960s.
Mujasi,
Arthur
you can't
Jensen.
hear us again.
Okay, I
No,
couldn't
I
hear
hear
y'all.
you. No, we hear you.
Oh, okay. So I don't
He
Yeah,
know.
but I
he
think
couldn't
you went
hear
out a little
Brass.
bit.
Brass was
Oh, I
still.
think Brass went in and out.
No, I'm good. Y'all go ahead. Y'all go ahead.
Oh
Move
no, he
forward.
good. Oh no, he good.
Yeah, move forward.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. I didn't know who. So yeah, the audio went in.
Appreciate
This
that,
is
brother.
good.
Let me add that if you read the paragraph, he used that to justify the standardized testing that was implemented in the schools as a standard to measure intelligence. And like I
Right.
already said, that we counteracted that by understanding, and that pushed us to deal with learning differentiation, learning
Mm-hmm.
modalities, learning types, uh, uh, skill levels, all of those things start going into how we assess a student, because a
Right. Right.
student is not this one uh, object that is not subject to societal pressures.
Right. And anathema, yeah, and I'm glad you're establishing how the responses was in more recent times. What we're doing through this article, we're following this theoretical tradition that was established on this white superiority premises. So stay with us real quick, because you're right. And eventually we got to the point where we started to understand the differentiation in terms of pedagogy and the different learning styles and different forms of intelligence. But we're not there yet, because we're at the point where Arthur Jensen comes in, okay, a hereditarianist, psychologist, and he extends and double down on this testing idea in America, and he focuses in on Black folk. And he says, on average, the intellectual inferior to whites, but that they were on average a 15-point IQ differentiation between the two races.
A
Jensen's
standard deviation.
a standard deviation. Jensen's piece becomes the so-called scientific data behind many of the policies and programs and dispositions of racial segregationists in the 60s. Talk about that. How did that inform how was his position useful for the average racist at that time?
You can
Fatty,
you don't. I apologize. Who was that? Somebody else want to go? Y'all can go.
it's Fatty time.
Go ahead, Freddie.
Why
Or
y'all
no,
calling
you.
Freddie out? I'm calling my brother
Oh
Freddie
no,
out.
I apologize. I'm
Oh.
listening to Chef. Chef always gets somebody in trouble. No, my thing is,
It's
um, it's easy to dehumanize them. It's
fear.
easy to sick dogs on them. It's easy to say like it's the moral compass,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like if you look at somebody, they always tell you, you could judge a person on how they treat somebody if they don't need them. When you work in any kind of corporation, but when you feel like you don't need someone, then you could justify anything. No, no, they don't have to go to the same school as us.
Mm.
I gotta slow down my son's learning to help this kid learn. Not that I want to keep everything segregated. My son is gonna suffer in class because we gotta keep up for this 15-point behind person.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want to go here. No, they can't hold office. No, they shouldn't vote. They have no idea on how to pick a good candidate. You know what I mean? So it just
Mm-hmm.
justifies so many things that you don't even pay attention to. They don't have to care about our health
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
mean the strong. Who cares if they're going to make more? All they're here is to work. So it justifies so many things that you don't even have to respect the person. It allows you to be able to do whatever you want to 'em.
Absolutely. 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 Good analysis. Brother Anathema, I know you was about to say something. Was you wanted to chime in and add to
I
that?
was, I was gonna basically kind of add to what or say what the brother just said that
Mm-hmm.
in the context of the laws I fear, it builds on the laws I fear, and it says that I don't need to spend money on these people.
Mhm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to
Mm-hmm.
bolster or support them with our government expense. That's why they can't come to my public school. They're good in their raggedy schools. They're good in their raggedy neighborhood. They're good in the lower bottoms. They don't need the same funding we are need. And if you're asking, and I'm just saying that way, like I think it's more support building on the laws I fear idea where we don't need to put government funding towards them.
Mm. Mm.
And
Mm.
it said it wouldn't be helpful anyway to even if you did, it just used to prove that it will assert that it wouldn't be helpful if you did desegregate
Especially
and give out
with you.
compensatory education. That just on top of that, it wouldn't be helpful.
That's right. That's right. That's
Well,
right.
So
can
push that
I
notion.
add something too?
Go ahead.
So somewhere in there, right? And I know this is a little bit going backwards, and forgive me because I can't talk as regularly as I'd like to, but like somewhere in there, I think some of it's still not necessarily all specific for just the black people, right? Like even when it was talking about interbreeding with he was trying to encourage people who were the higher status to breed with each other. He talking about people
Mm-hmm.
lower status like to discourage him. He wasn't color specific, at least maybe not in that specific passage, right? And we're talking about another instance that like unless it's stated in there, was it clear about it being specific on only color, or is it still just talking about people who wouldn't test it?
Well, you're right. It covered a wide span. It covered a wide span. Like the the movement between scientific racism and the metaphysics around testing was not only to categorize and structure the rationale behind superiority and inferiority over European Americans to African Americans and everybody in between, but like we established and mentioned earlier, it also created categorizations amongst European groups. And so at the time where between World War I and World War II, where you had a lot of Eastern Europeans migrating to the United States, most of what folks was experiencing at Ellis Island was testing before they can even come into the country. They had to sit in front of a so-called person to get administered a simplified form of an IQ test to not only measure who they are and their capabilities and what they can do, but to categorize and still so-called get hard data on the superiority and inferiority of different European groups that were coming in. So they even use this as a tool to try to decipher where the Anglo-Saxons sit, so-called, at the top of the totem pole compared to other European groups that was within America. So you're right, Logic. Like this was also used as a tool to construct the categorization of intelligence levels and utility of people's abilities, even amongst the European sector. And it was
Yeah,
there, because we already know we've established that the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant is the epitome of whiteness. He's the top of the food chain in terms of what whiteness is. Every single shade of whiteness beyond that had to be justified in some way. And we see in this eugenics movements and this IQ and intelligence testing movement that they used even these so-called data pieces to lump where Europeans sit under the ranking of the white Anglo-Saxon
Right.
Protestant.
So
Go
would
ahead,
it
brother
be fair
Chef.
to say,
Hmm.
Lester, would it be fair to say that they weren't overly kind even to their own, but they were just even worse to us, right?
You'll be
Like we
exact.
their low was super low, and they just ranked us lower than them.
You'll be exact. You'll be exact. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
I
the
always say
nature.
what happens in
It's
the
like
general society is intensified in the black community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And brother Chef was about to say something real quick, Brass. Chef, you was about to say
Go
something?
ahead, brother.
oh yeah, man, it's wow. What he's saying here, right, is that he's linking it to the earlier people like Galton and and what we was reading prior, right?
Hmm.
But he's even saying that now, well, in 1994 when he wrote this, that back when Jensen and them was proposing these things, right? They had social, real live implications. He said that these things was reaching the president, right? And
Right.
they were actually saying to neglect the African Americans at this
mhm.
point because it was so it was directing policy and how we see how communities are actually being treated by administrations. You dig
Hmm.
what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, so
Hmm.
this has real world effects. So
Implications.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the argument that we was kind of having when we were having these IQ Arthur Jensen and Charles Murray arguments. Like
Hmm.
this,
Hmm.
you can't trust people with this. But yeah, this is dope. This is dope.
So and that's what I was for to go. That's the next direction. I wanted somebody to look up a few people if they can, if they're available. Look up benign neglect. Look up benign neglect, according to Daniel Moynihan's report. And talk about the two controversial positions of what benign neglect mean. What did the different perspectives mean? Where was the controversy in that? Look up.
Oh,
Go ahead.
so what comes to mind, right, is something that we when Biden was running again, right?
Mm,
And they brought up that Biden was against the busing of African Americans into white schools in the 70s, right?
hmm.
Remember
Hmm.
that came up? Well,
Yep.
this is talking about, how the white sentiment of how they felt as though, they didn't want their kids going to school with our kids is because of articles like Jensen and them
Yep.
that was putting out that our kids were intellectually inferior,
Inferior.
right?
Yep.
And then when you think about it, what we read earlier, that it was some who proposed, you got to link all this shit together. It was people who proposed in the 19th century that the slower of the race would hinder, total society. So if our kids go to school with their kids and our kids are a standard deviation behind, you dig what I'm saying? Their kids will be less likely to reach their full potential because they'll be slowed down by the inadequacies of the less endowed blacks that now got to go to school with them. So all of this shit is linked together. It's crazy.
Chef is putting it together. Chef is putting it together. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's like
My bad.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, DQ.
No, because I was about to say the reason is wild because my first time ever hearing benign neglect was dealing with when I was doing research on what's his name? I was doing research on the president. What's the president? Richard Nixon. I was doing research, I was doing research on Richard Nixon, and that came up because Daniel Patrick Mulligan, whatever it is. I didn't realize that he was his policy advisor. I'm just making that connection. But now everything's falling into place on why Richard Nixon was doing what the fuck he was doing.
There you go.
He was being advised by this nigga teacher. Oh my God. So,
there you go.
Let's go, man. We cooking.
Coming together. It's coming together. Okay. So now here's his ruthless summary of Daniel Moynihan's report is that it was disheartening, a government-sponsored report on the Black family and issues related to crime and delinquency, out of wedlock births, and poverty in the Black community was a call for American society to look more deeply at the factoring genetics into the intellectual process. Now, again, what did they mean when President Nixon got his policy and report on benign neglect? What did they mean? I'm trying to get to this.
What it meant was, okay, I apologize. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I could jump in. Yeah.
No, what it meant was stop focusing so much on race. And what happened was they kind of felt like, I wanted to go to your original question of the two things. It was more like a pragmatic view. If you stop focusing on race so much, right, especially after the civil rights, if you stop focusing on it so much, kind of like a cooling off kind of period, you'll have less rhetoric and more quiet improvement. So it's kind of like back off, let us settle this. Let the whites and the blacks figure it out, because what happens is to them it was like, y'all so focused on race, y'all not focused on the country, like moving the country forward. This ain't even a big deal. Just focus on the country, let the country move forward. Y'all keep the federal, what they was doing was trying to keep the federal intervention out. Let the states, kind of stay. It was kind of like a protection for the South. But on the other hand, Black people at the time was saying, what you're doing is you're ignoring our suffering. That's the whole make me want to holler the way you do my life. It's like so what you're doing is racism and this poverty that's going on and this civil rights and this segregation that's going on is important. But if you try to do this benign neglect, basically saying this ain't the government's issue, what you're really doing is you just abandoning all the responsibility. So what'll happen is all of the schools will still stay unequal. We'll still be getting our head kicked in by these police. And now the people that we'd have to go to for help for these things are the people that's actually doing it to us. We need the federal government to intervene, but the Nixon is getting from Moynihan. And it's important y'all brought up Nixon. I could talk about that all day. But it's important because then if the federal government accepts this as benign neglect, like literally, all right, cool, we'll let y'all sort that out and we'll just do what we doing. Then you got Bull Connor and the boys. They basically will be able to run roughshod and just ignore Black suffering. Just ignore it. Like it's not even there. But this is in my area where I can participate. This is politics. I like it.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, my brother. Go ahead.
I think the last sentence of the preceding paragraph. The preceding paragraph sets up what you're talking about in the next paragraph. So when he says opponents of compensatory education were bolstered by Jensen's claim that such programs which enrolled a significant percentage of African Americans were not
Not
significant
significant factors.
in lessening the black and white IQ difference.
Come on,
Then
brother.
he
Come
goes
on.
down to say on the heels of that, he said policy of benign neglect. To
There you
me, that
go.
means give these black people whatever little advancement, but it's not going to matter.
There you go.
They're not going to ever complete the gap. So give them the token person at Howard. Give them the anchor on television. Give them the this and that. Give them the athlete. Give them whatever you're going to do, but it's not going to close the IQ gap, and you're still going to win. So neglect, just to do something benign for them, but continue to neglect the serious issue. That's how
Now,
I see it.
thank you, brother Anathema. And so perfect crystallization to that point. Now, enter into this because what y'all established with Arthur Jensen and what he was able to influence and implicate with his article in the 60s becomes the scientific revisiting and revisioning through his mentees, Richard Hierstein and Charles Murray, in their bell curve. Now, controversial. We've talked about the bell curve in the book here on the Discord, and it's been the source of some serious, discourse where there's been opposing views. Is the bell curve an extension of social Darwinist scientific racist analysis, or is it movement into looking at how genetics and environment may influence intelligence? Let's unpack this. According to the article, he positions that the bell curve, which is, Kirsten's and Murray's work, extends this hereditarianist idea that is socially connected to Darwinistic principles. He extends that Murray and Hierstein was establishing, again, at a time where racial animosity and public attention on race analysis called for this scientific justification. Blacks, whites have their not only intellectual constitute, but the capability of what they're able to do. About the bell curve. Go ahead. We'll close with that. Let's unpack that.
I don't know, because when I did that show with Fetty, and we talked some about the bell curve, but this is where I kind of disagreed a little bit with the writing, because I don't know if the bell curve, Fetty would probably be better to answer this, but I don't think the bell curve, I don't know. I would need somebody else to, I don't know, because I don't think it's, put it like this, my answer would be, I don't think it's as cut and dry that it's an extension of, I don't think it's that cut and dry, where we could just say it's just racist, it's just an example of an extension of social Darwinism or some kind of inherent issue. Because I read a little bit where it seems like it kind of brings back scientific racism, right? That they're locked into some kind of permanent hierarchy. But I don't know, because I don't know. I actually would need like a Fetty or a Chef on this one, because it seems like it doesn't, but it's like it's enough. It presents enough of a gray area to where you'd have to look at some of the data and say, well, okay, they said that these scores are inherent. We're born 15 points behind in this IQ, right? But but in the bell curve, you got to kind of look at the data, because if you look at the numbers now, we're about, I think we're not 15 on average. I think it's like 25 or 30 points now behind in average. So as much as you want to say, oh yeah, that's not inherent, we know it's not inherent, but you still, I don't want to get so far away from looking at what are the reasons why these scores aren't keeping up. But I would need somebody else. That's just my uneducated opinion. But y'all go ahead.
Who else want to chime in on this?
I think
I feel like it. Go ahead, Anathema. You go.
Go on, do what y'all do. I'll go after one.
Yeah, I feel like it's a direct extension. I think it builds on top of the same like mentality. You know, when I check out the bell curve, I get the impression that he's trying to maybe verify some of his predispositions. Honestly, that's the
Mhm.
impression I get out of it, right? So you can, and the reason why I would say that is because they have data that would show that you can't make those large sweeping arguments like that, right? And then of
Mhm.
course you also
But they
got the
didn't though. They
backdrop
didn't. But go ahead.
of environment playing a role in people's intelligence, and you not being able to quantify that. So you start out with too many missing pieces, right? So whatever puzzle you put together would just be a narrative that you have, not necessarily completely based off the facts, because they haven't quite rounded that out yet. You know what I'm saying? That's why there's no definitive statement the way we kind of assume that there is. Go ahead.
Okay. So before whoever, I think I heard Fetty say something. So let me throw this out there to
I was
continue to
gonna
stir
go.
this. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna bring it back to you in a second, brother. Ruth Lidge says that, however, what is most striking about the similarities between the bell curve and earlier works of scientific racism is that the former so blankly espouses a form of totalitarian and reactionary philosophy that only could be seen in its purest form through the lenses of social Darwinism. He goes on to say, in true Galtian and Pearsonian fashion, Kirstein and Murray assert in their work that culture, intellect, and knowledge are racially determined, fixed, and hence not subject to devices of social construction.
Right, which would mean we're not malleable as well. Right? Just like our
Mm.
culture is fixed, we would no longer be malleable.
The
Go
anathema?
ahead, anathema.
I'm allowed to comment now.
Brother, I just wanted to continue
Funny,
to
you
spur the
just
spot.
Yeah,
read
Yeah.
go ahead,
two.
brother. Just
And
go
you
ahead and
should
talk
you
enough.
should change your name too, because nobody in here hates you. So we should be able to call you Buddha. We don't hate
Just
you.
want to know because I just highlighted what you read, right?
You just
And I was
highlighted that?
gonna read that and comment on that, but and then put that with the beginning of the, well, not necessarily, yeah. Was it the beginning? No. The second sentence in the following paragraph where he says,
Mhm.
uh
This is
this,
Malthusian logic?
this is Malthusian logic
Hmm.
personified. Whites owe blacks nothing because due to the latter's faulty genetics, any
Genetics.
amount of efforts to radically change their lives would become naught.
Mm. Mm. Keep going, brother. Build on it. Build on it.
Well, what I was saying is that they're using that bell curve to say that this justifies that you are intellectually inferior and you're of that class that needs to basically be pruned. I don't know what better metaphor to give, that you're basically socially non-viable, and that you should be subject to the mechanisms of social Darwinism to suffer your fate,
And
because
this is,
anything we
go
do
ahead.
for
I'm
you
sorry.
will be naught.
It
Go
would
ahead,
be
Fred.
not. Yeah. It wouldn't even help. Like, this is encoded in your genetics. So there's nothing we can do to help your genetics. This is where I want
Which is
someone to
what Charles
challenge
Murray
ruthless.
eventually said.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is
I
Yeah,
think
but I
this
I
is where
think
I want someone to challenge ruthless, and that's the ruthless in this. And this is why I was saying, Brother Fetty, I'm hoping that you could speak to this because I think you read the book. I've only read just a little of that bell curve. I put it down. What's your
yeah,
take on it,
that's what I
Brother
was gonna
Fetty?
ask the entire panel. Like, how many people even read 3+
Gee,
chapters in the book?
so I read half the book, and I
Okay.
disagree that the bell curve. I haven't finished it. I put it down because I went and hugged my child and prayed for
Yeah,
the.
It,
me too.
hold on, I'm
Me
saying
But
what
the
too.
chapter though. Like, what
hold on. Let me
chapter
finish.
was
Let
it?
me finish. Let me
Okay,
finish.
all
Let me
right,
finish.
all right. Go
But
ahead.
the bell curve, from what I've read so far, in my limited understanding, the bell curve does not prove that black people are socially nonviolent.
Mm,
And
okay.
so y'all can listen. Maybe I'm becoming a bit of a different human being, but
You
it,
said prove. You said
No,
prove.
no, but it doesn't. I'm saying that it doesn't. I don't want to wreck the show. I'm
No,
just
you said
saying
No,
you
this
Niggas
is
be
said
part
messing
of the
up
doesn't.
the
discussion.
book, bro.
I
Like,
don't want to wreck
Hold
it.
on.
I'm just saying.
No,
You gotta
listen to
let
what you
people
said,
finish. You
though.
gotta let people finish. You gotta let people finish.
No,
Go
he
ahead,
don't
bro.
understand what I'm
You
saying,
gotta
so I
let
can't move
him
forward. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. He doesn't understand what
finish.
I'm saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I want you to reiterate that. You said it doesn't prove. Like, who said it was trying to prove something?
Well,
What is
no,
it
that's
putting forth?
I don't even think
no,
y'all understand Murray
no.
argument.
Hold
Gotta
on.
let people
Before he gets
finish.
crazy. Yeah, before he gets crazy. So, Chef, I'm gonna say this. The reason why I brought up socially viable, I use those words specifically, is because that's what Anathema was saying from the reading that blacks that basically we wouldn't. It proves that we're not socially viable and need to be pruned. And I'm just saying that the bell curve doesn't prove that. That's not. That's not even. It's not. That's not necessarily what it is. I just want to say a quick piece on the bell curve. 2 seconds.
Mhm.
Um, the one thing I think we forget about the bell curve, and this is what I liked in reading it. This is why I wanted to do another show with Fetty about it. At a bare minimum, it does highlight that intelligence is important. That's what I got from it. I got a lot of crazy stuff, but I didn't want to read into it. But it to me, it that cognitive ability definitely has some real world outcomes. And that even if we don't like what they're saying, then we need to start having discussions in and around it if we're really talking about fixing society. And that's
Mm.
even what I
Am I
get
allowed?
from these.
Am I allowed? Let me know when I'm allowed to
O-
speak.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll come to you,
but
brother. Just be patient.
even in these pieces that we're reading now, I don't necessarily like the way they're doing it, right? With the social Darwinism or the Moynihan memo to the president. I don't like how they're doing it, but I think one thing that we should put a focus on definitely is start having some real conversations in and around cognitive ability, and maybe bell curve is a piece, and then maybe we can move to some other things because cognitive ability is important, and I don't think we address that enough.
Okay. I'm gonna make sure I create some space for Brother Fetty because he was trying to come in and
Yeah,
enter
he just
in.
asked a question. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Brother Fetty. But I want beyond your question, Fetty, I want you to talk about the complications of Dennis Ruthless' position with the bell curve. If you can take a second to expound on your thoughts on that.
He might be busy. Anathema, go ahead until Fetty get back.
All right. As an educator who was taught the bell curve and all of that, we dropped the bell part of it and we use grading on the curve, right? But I never used grading on the curve. We counteracted that with what's called a rubric. Understand when you have a rubric for grading, that changes the curve. You understand? Because the curve is based on who in the class achieves the highest grade, right? And let's say you're supposed to score a 99 on this exam, but the brightest person in this classroom scored a 74. Well, that person would get an A, but in overall intelligence, that person is such and such behind the 99. But in
Mm,
reference to the people in the classroom, the curve now, that person becomes the A. Then the lesser people become the average, the people in the middle, the C. They might be scoring all of 66. And then the failing people is, scoring whatever they fail at the lower end of the curve, right?
right.
And then people try to use that concept, but what that does in the classroom, right? Let's say, right? I use a program to give me a curve of the grades, right? And then I look at that and I say, okay, here are the learning deficiencies. So the higher end student is so far behind that I know I need to do such and such with him in order for him to bridge that gap, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I need to establish this rubric for him. But these other people, they're not going to be able to make that jump. But at least I can get them to jump maybe to the C or B level. So I'm
Okay.
going to
Okay.
establish that rubric for them. The
Mm-hmm.
failing students, I'm just going to try and get them to love learning and want to get a D or a C minus. Because once
Mm-hmm.
they achieve, they're going to want to be part of the larger group. and they're gonna go get a CRB. I've done this many years. So there's ways in which in brass defense, the curve can be, because we do it in education, where the curve can be used to address differentiation in learning, in the learning spectrum within our
Okay.
classroom, but not as a standard of the overall learning potentiality of the student. That's when it becomes the racial part, where now,
Gotcha.
because they're on this curve, that's the limit of their learning potentiality, rather than giving you data to explore why they scored this low. And
Right. Can
what
you
you
land
have
there?
to do, what rubric you have to create to grade them on, to inspire true learning, to get them to match the standard that you're achieving.
Gotcha. I want you to land there real quick because we got like
Yeah,
less than a
I'm done.
minute.
That's all I
Okay,
wanted to say.
appreciate you. Excellent, excellent pieces on that. And I want to see if we can build on that a little bit more off of the fire pit, because I want to talk to you a little bit about your practices and philosophies in education. Now, to your point earlier, Bress, and other people who've studied and looked at Charles Murray stuff and kind of examined some of this, I don't remember um, a lot of my notes out of that. Does the politics of the author influences how we interpret the writing of their work? Does the politics of the author influence the writing of their work and how we interpret their work? Here's why I ask. Is because Dennis Ruthless closes by saying, though the surviving author, Charles Murray, claims not to have written the book with the politics of race in mind, a review of his previous works by both authors suggests that quite the opposite may be true. Murray's conservative racial politics were clearly stated in his book, the 1988 book, Losing Ground, America's Social Policy from 1950 to 1980, and many of his earlier arguments are repeated in the bell curve. Does that
Yeah,
influence how we interpret his work?
absolutely. I mean,
No,
at
not to
some
the
point in
level.
time,
I thought you was asking that question to Eric.
yeah,
I can't
at
talk.
some point in
Everybody, it's
time,
everybody.
Charles
Every time I
Murray.
try to talk, niggas.
Hold on,
Go
hold
ahead.
on, hold on.
I
Wait,
didn't
one
cut you
second.
off. It was a
Betty,
delay, Fetty. I didn't cut
Betty,
you off.
Betty, we just
He
tried to.
probably
Yeah,
left.
he left. He left.
God,
Yeah, it's a delay. I
I
just
think he
didn't
got
get
a
him.
bad signal.
okay, go
It's
ahead,
all
Betty,
Logic.
good. I mean, I'm not about to. Anyway, so
yeah,
like at
we'll
some
scroll
point
up.
in time, Charles Murray uses a term of dysgenics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's explaining how black people are have been um, breeding between each other, and the bad traits of starting to escalate and get out of control, basically, right? That
Mm-hmm.
we've
Mm-hmm.
that so that he uses that term at some point, and he also suggests, like one of the other people in the article, that those social policies or those social reliefs won't do any good. He also says that at some point. So
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely have to include that into anything else that you've ever said.
Hey, hey, who else? Who else want to
I'm
chime
gonna
into
go
that? But
to Charles Murray, and I'm always gonna go to a president if I can. Charles
mm-hmm.
Murray's work is in the bell curve, but his earlier work, that Losing Ground in '84,
Mm-hmm.
that did influence Reagan because
Mm.
he attacked all those quote unquote great society programs, the
Mm-hmm.
welfare, the housing, affirmative action, and what he's saying is that it worsened the poverty because you was encouraging them to be dependent. So now you're
Mm.
talking about a book that shaped Reagan era, that's the latchkey kids and the getting rid of the parks, and there's no reason for them to have any kind of welfare or anything like that.
Mhm.
So what they're saying, so the bell curve for what I got as far as policy goes, that's what I'm saying is benefit is highlighting just to be able to talk about cognition. But the
Mm.
policy of the bell curve is very dangerous because it means don't ever in life, they're telling politicians, don't ever in life try to engineer some kind of equality through a government program, because that
Gotcha.
ain't what it is,
Okay.
and it makes you forget that you're actually trying to help the people
Mm.
that are going through something.
Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I didn't read the book, but just based off the article,
Mm-hmm.
um, what what I wrote was it and summarized was Ernstine and Murray revived Jensen's arguments, and they claimed genetics was more important than environment for human abilities. Repeated black and white IQ gap argument, suggested that social programs for disadvantaged groups were a waste, and framed equality as natural, echoing old social Darwinism and eugenics. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody read all of these authors in here books, but just based on the article, because I think that's what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
You can see
Mm-hmm.
all the bricks in the wall, how you get this wall. These are all pieces, they're all built on each other. A
That's
lot of
right.
it's circular, and then you end up with a system that's in place and metrics that are in place without even understanding how they came about and why they came about. So I think the article definitely helped with that.
Point, brother.
Absolutely. Yeah.
May I comment?
Yeah, go ahead, brother. Go ahead. And we're for
Yeah,
the
I
close out, so
think
be
a lot
brief.
of times that when you hear scientific racism, you think about phrenology, you think about somebody measuring skulls somewhere
Mm-hmm.
in the 16 and 1700s, and you don't necessarily think that it had modern influence, that there's a legacy of this that went in and had practical, I want the practical is the wrong word, but actual application. It
Mm-hmm.
influenced people in policy. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what he's doing. He's demystifying the concept of because when you hear scientific racism, people always say a pseudoscience that. But
Mm-hmm.
this pseudoscience actually has a legacy that went into normal policy and
That's right.
contributed to regular, or our actual political life. It
That's
wasn't
right.
just in the pseudo realm.
That's right. That's right.
So that's what I
Absolutely.
get out of it.
Absolutely. And so we're going to close that up there because that's a perfect closing and kind of summation to what we're gathering with this. And this is, I'm going to say, out of all the articles that I picked, I think this is the one that hope it was good for conversation and learning. This is probably the most dense one that had a lot of analytical and kind of abstract parts that we had to put together. Some of the other works that we're going to be getting into is a little bit more grounded and easy to chew. But this one I wanted to chew on because of the conversations that I've learned from Fetty and Brass, from the conversation in the Discord with everybody contributing, and the back and forth we had around the bell curve and stuff like that. There was a lot to learn and unpack with. So I hope this offered this opportunity. So as we've summated, it was a theoretical tradition of trying to prove white superiority through Darwinistic principles and how it eventually showed up in hereditarianism and eventually grounded into influence in policy programs and a theoretical backdrop to politics. I think one of the things that I want to leave off with and specifically highlighting aspect of how this social Darwinistic perspective may have influenced body politics of governments is that our a large group conversation that I want to leave off with in terms of our homework, and I always try to give some homework, is how did this superiority and social Darwinistic positioning in the form of Pearson and Kidd influence the British Parliament in terms of their conquest for ending slavery, establishing themselves in this new economic order, and creating quote unquote liberation in different places. So, how does this relate to our conversation about the British Empire and the morality crusade of British policy and even American policy in other places of dealing with African Americans? And there, thank y'all for coming to the Fire Pit and Study Group. Another phenomenal piece. And yeah, and that's it. That's all we got for today.
And Mujasi, if you don't
Mhm.
mind, can you talk a little bit about the fire pit just to give a overview? I want to
Yes,
get a
overview.
soundbite, like an advertisement. I want to get a little soundbite if you don't mind.
Gotcha. The fire pit is a concept that arrived out of the experience of African Americans during our time of trying to organize and find some space of health. Africans in America And in the Americas, and I must say even in the Caribbeans and South America, Central America, we use the fire pit in various different ways to organize ourselves, to pray, to pass on wisdom, heritage, to build ourselves up for health. And we use it as a way to exchange new knowledge and keep intelligence amongst ourselves. We don't talk about the fire pit enough unless we're looking at the experiences of the Marunic Africans that some type of salvation and liberation and moving into territories where they was able to sustain themselves. But the fire pit was essential before it was our first institution where we was able to galvanize around a church or a lodge or any other spaces that we built. We had the fire. And so when we talked about and threw the on the table some months ago, starting a study pit, a study group, one of the brothers, I don't know if it was Hits, I don't know if it was Logic or Brass or DQ, but they created a room called Mujasi's Firepit. I subtracted the Mujasi and just elevated the concept of the fire pit because of how significant it is to our people's history in the diaspora. And so I invite everybody to join the fire pit because TMI is doing something very powerful. We're creating a study group where we can go into some of these hard issues and talk about our experience as a people.
Yo, big up yourself, man.
Yeah,
Yo, Brian,
appreciate you. Hey, we appreciate you, Mujasi.
Likewise,
Mujasi,
brothers, I appreciate you.
is there a way I can do this with fiction? Like,
Yeah, I've been asking you to
is there a
do
way
one.
I can actually
Yeah, we
Yeah.
told you to do it. Yeah.
My brothers, I gotta jump off. I gotta go into a quick meeting. And I'll
Okay,
be
brother,
right
go
back.
ahead.
I
Go ahead.
appreciate you,
I
Mujasi.
will come do this.
Thank you,
Likewise. Likewise.
Hold on, y'all. All right, Mujasi, thanks. If y'all want to move to after